Good evening. Welcome to the August 28th, 2014 Murfreesboro City Council meeting. Councilman Ron Washington has our prayer and our pledge.
Thank you, Mayor. Join me and the audience and residents and everybody for a moment of silence, please. Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah. Okay. Council members, tonight's a bittersweet moment, or a bittersweet tonight because we get to say farewell to a council member who's been with us for 14 years and 4 months and has done many, many good things for the residents of Murfreesboro. But it's also a good night that Toby gets to start the next chapter of his life. And I was sitting back and thinking today when we were talking about this on the agenda, I've known Toby for 21 years. When I came to MTSU, Toby was the student body president. Was it 92 or 93?
92.
92. And so we have served together, have raised families. And that's one thing when I think that you look at some of the things that Toby has accomplished, I think the thing that he would tell you, and knowing Toby, one of the things he's most proud of is his family.
That's right.
And I want to publicly say thank you for what you've done for the residents and what you've done for me personally, and that we're going to miss you. And I'm going to read a proclamation and then give you, we have a plaque for you, and then you can have the microphone, and then council members after that, y'all are welcome to, you can get the last word. So I have a proclamation for Toby. It says, whereas Tolbert Franklin Gilly III is a McMinnville native who served steadfastly in his role as Murfreesboro City Council member since taking the reins of municipal government in 2000. And whereas he was sworn in on May 1st, 2000 and served competently in that role, as well as serving on the Planning Commission, the Water Sewer Board, the Risk Management and Power Boards. And whereas Toby Gilly began his service at the age of 29 and served faithfully and honorably for 14 years with selfless public service, sacrificing time away from his profession, his family, and dedicated service to the citizens of Murfreesboro. And whereas Toby Gilly faced many difficult issues along his long council career, but along with his honorable fellow city council members, mayors, and city managers, through the years was able to join them in paving a responsible way for Murfreesboro to become the large and vibrant city it has become. Now, therefore, I, Shane McFarland, Mayor of the City of Murfreesboro, Tennessee, on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim August 28, 2014 as a day to honor Tolbert Franklin Gilly III for his 14 years of service, and I urge all to join me as we celebrate this community-minded man's contribution to the City of Murfreesboro.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you all, and I do have a few things I'd like to say, and I'll be brief, but former Vice Mayor Bratcher did want to make sure that I kept you here long enough that you don't beat his record for a short agenda. But when I was first elected to the council, I was only 29 years old. At that time, neither of my children had been born. In fact, Laurie and I were still, relatively speaking, newlyweds. Being on the council is the only life that my family and my children have ever known. They're here tonight, and I want to thank them for sharing me with the city. When people talk about sacrifice of public servants, the true sacrifice really comes from their family members. Having Daddy at home on Thursday night and many other nights was never an option, and I want to thank Laurie and Isabella and Grant for their love, support, sacrifice, and understanding for the work that we've done here on the council. During my tenure on the council, I've had the honor to serve with 3 mayors, 4 vice mayors, a long list of fine council members, department heads, administrators, and employees. I want the public to know that a more dedicated group of public servants you will not find anywhere, ever. It has been my privilege to serve beside you and to work with you during the last 14 years. As I mentioned, I was only 29 when the citizens of this city put their faith in me to assist in the team that would guide Murfreesboro through a period of unprecedented growth. They did so 3 more times, and here I stand 14 years later, so very grateful to have played an ever so small role in making Murfreesboro the place that we all call home. It has been a pleasure to work with you all and to start and to raise my family here. And I want you to say that every Thursday night, being with you all, I have loved every single minute of it. And I want you all to know that. But now, as I begin a new chapter of public service in my life when I take the bench next Tuesday, I want to say that I will miss you all and that hopefully my family will find something else for me to do on Thursday nights. If I start to get in the car and leave and come here, I'm sure that they'll stop me. But I want to leave you with this. Council members, we come and go. We do our job for a season, hopefully leaving the city even better than when we came. That's just the nature of the job. But the spirit of the great city of Murfreesboro is never failing. It has been my honor and privilege to have you all as my friends and family. Thank you.
Folks, I think listening to what Toby said, and that's something the residents, I hope they understand that we truly are, although sometimes we agree, sometimes we disagree, we're family, just like family members. Since Toby's been on this council, his family has been born. Just 2 years ago, I had a baby born. I had a new baby. We look at different council members who've gone through illnesses since they've been on the council, and we're all still here together. And so I would like to ask Lori and Grant and Isabella if you would come up. And we have a plaque, and it's for Toby, but I think it's for the entire family.
Come on, bud.
We have a plaque presented to Toby Gilly and the entire family in appreciation for 14 years of service on the Murfreesboro City Council, and mainly for you guys for sharing Toby with us for all these many years, and that he has made Murfreesboro a better place than he left it.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank y'all. Council members, if you have any comments,
I have a comment. A fellow asked me yesterday in the same chamber, he said, how are you all going to replace Toby Gilly? And I told him, we can't replace Toby Gilly. I said, Toby is just, he's helped me so, Toby, you have helped me so much. I remember when you first took your seat next to me after Chris left, and you said, hey, don't worry about it. I'll get you through it. I'll teach you a lot, and you did. You taught me so much. What I'm going to remember about you is I don't have to go home now with the bruises on my left arm where you nudged me through the meetings. I'm going to miss that. But what I'm going to miss most, Toby, is when we didn't vote alike. And you would always look at me after we had the vote, and you would say, and so you never did say anything, and then even going to the car, you just, so I'm going to miss that. But you have taught me so much, and I'm going to really miss you. I don't know what I'm going to do as far as keeping Doug in line, but I'm going to really miss you, and I really appreciate everything you've ever done to support me.
Thank you, Madeline.
Toby, I think as a man, one of the best compliments that we could ever pay to each other is to simply say, "You're a good man."
Thank you, Doug.
Well, Toby, the family issue is real critical. My daughter Carmel is here for a reason. She wanted to be here to see you at your last meeting. And she was born in 1998, and I was on the council in 1998. So all she's ever known is me ripping and running and being up here for 16 years. And that's tough. Anybody does public service, and if you do it the right way, you miss a lot of things. I've missed a whole lot of things in those 16 years because you just don't serve on the council now. You serve on other things too, and you have other commitments that you end up going to, and a whole lot of meetings at night that people don't even see. But one thing about Toby, we served on the planning commission together. I got cowardly and I got off, and he stayed because that planning commission is rough. And back through the days when we had all those public hearings, more than you have now, but a bunch of them, and residents coming out, and it's really difficult. Any of you that hadn't been on that planning commission, take you a dip in there. You see what I'm talking about. But he's sharp. I saw the ambition. I saw the integrity, and that's what you need as anyone that's going to run for public service. He's a model person. That's what you need to do. So if you follow his lead, follow his model as far as wanting to be a public servant, and be nonpartisan, if you can, these days, then he's it. So, man, look here. Love you. Gonna miss you. Be good.
Thank you, Ron. Thanks.
I'll say a quick word too, Toby. I've been around you too since back at MTSU days, and of course, with our kids growing up, families knowing each other, and kids in school together is a neat thing. One thing I'll say to you is all these years that I've been able to talk to you about the council, and you willingly talk to me about it. It's funny how when you get on this side, you start to understand a little bit more of what this is about, and how tough it is to serve, and how tough it is to try to make the right decisions the best way you can for people. And to do that for as long as you've done it, I acknowledge that and say, well done, and good luck in the next phase, buddy.
Thanks, Rick.
Toby, you can learn a lot by listening to your kids, and I know that as a general ritual, I'll always ask my son before I leave for the council meeting if I've got my jacket on inside out. And his response is usually, no, you've got it on right, but he said, you're still not going to look as good as Toby Gilly. I humbly accept that position right behind you, I hope, but even more than that, certainly he often says, Dad, you need to listen to what Toby's saying because he's a boss. And from this point forward, I'll tell him, you're not the boss, you're a judge. And he needs to refer to you as Your Honor. So, Your Honor, we're quite delighted at your recent election. We know you're going to do a wonderful job. We look forward to watching you in the future. Though it may not be with us, certainly you've got great things ahead of you. And thank you so much for what you've done to help me personally, as well as our council. In the past couple of years to help us reach what we think is the best choice for our city and in the right direction for our city to go in. And you've never had a vote that I felt like that you didn't vote with all sincerity and what was best for our city in mind. So thank you for what you've done for our city, and thank you for what you've done for me.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you.
Toby, on behalf of staff, we want to thank you for your support and your vision for the ideas and the programs and the services that we brought to council. You've always been a great supporter, and we want to thank you for your leadership. Now, one of the things that Toby was a leader in, and this is a little-known story, my predecessor, Mr. Haley, did not necessarily quickly embrace technology. And Mr. Gilly encouraged Mr. Haley that as city manager of a progressive city that is on the cutting edge, that the city manager needed to have a computer. So at Mr. Gilly's direction, Mr. Haley finally agreed to get a laptop. Now, what you may not know was we all knew Roger was going to have a hard time with that laptop. So when it was about ready to come in, I brought an Etch-a-Sketch into the office. I said, Roger, we're not sure you can run the laptop, but I think you can handle the Etch-a-Sketch. So we want to thank you and wish you all the best.
Thank you, Rob.
All right, folks. Toby, we're proud of you.
Thank you, Shane.
We'll move to the consent agenda. Does anyone have anything that they have any questions or would want to discuss?
Mayor, I move for adoption of the consent agenda.
Second.
Mr. Gilly, Mr. Washington. Ms. Wright, if you'll call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. We'll move to third readings. Consider for passage on third and final reading, ordinance 14042, authorizing the charging and collection of electronic traffic citation fees pursuant to Chapter 750 of the Public Acts of 2014.
Move for passage.
Second.
Mr. Smotherman, Ms. Gels Harris. Ms. Wright, will call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. Consider for passage on third and final reading, ordinance 14044, the tax rate ordinance.
Move for passage on third and final reading.
Second.
Mr. Washington, Mr. LaLance. Ms. Wright, will call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. Consider for passage on the second reading, ordinance 14043, amending Murfreesboro City Code, Chapter 25 1/4 signs, 25 1/4-22, and 25 1/4-26, dealing with signs.
Move for passage.
Second.
Mr. LaLance, Ms. Gels Harris. Ms. Wright, will call the roll.
Mr. Gilly.
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris.
Aye.
Mr. LaLance.
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman.
Aye.
Mr. Washington.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young.
Aye.
Mayor McFarland.
Aye. Ms. Kerr and Mr. Ives, I know that you guys worked hard on this, and just being out in the community this week, how many people that came up to us and said, man, that y'all did great on the sign ordinance, and I said, we can't take credit for that. That was staff, so you did phenomenal on getting this through. Ms. Wright, do we have any beer permits?
Yes, we do. We have a location at 1706 Braidable Pike that actually submitted an application a couple years ago. They've now met their final inspections for the building codes department, so we had their application updated, and although it was approved at one time, pending those inspections, we decided to go ahead and submit that again because it was so old. They do still meet our requirements, and this one is ready to issue if you approve it. The next one is pending successful completion of the codes. It is for a new bar at 114 North Church Street. Everything else about the application meets our requirements. We have a restaurant at 123 Southeast Broad Street. It as well lacks the final building codes inspections. Otherwise, it does meet our requirements at this time. We have a convenience store at 4125 Manson Pike, Suite A. It has met our requirements other than the codes inspections, and we'd like to issue that one when they meet those. We have a new hotel at 1335 Conference Center Boulevard that would like to have a beer permit that also lacks the codes inspections. We have a restaurant that is changing ownership at 436 North Thompson Lane. Again, we lack the final codes inspections, but the rest of the permit application is in order. We have a new supercenter at 2012 Memorial Boulevard that will be a new location, and it lacks its final codes inspections. And finally, we have a special event permit for the Murfreesboro Young Professionals. Their event's going to be at the Avenue on October the 11th from 2 to 7, serving beer from 2:30 to 6:30, and that permit is ready to issue if you approve it. And at this time, we recommend approval for the ones that are ready, and would like to issue permits for those that are not ready once they meet their codes inspections to issue those permits.
Can I ask a question on this? Could we pull a couple of these out and look at these? I'm just not real sure what the sort of the
Absolutely.
sort of what the protocol is on this, but there's a couple in here that have some alcohol-related.
What the background check is done for is anything in the last 10 years, whether or not they have a a moral turpitude, which generally is interpreted as theft or something like that. We had another one recently that was a sexual harassment or domestic violence. That's what it was. And so we only go back the 10 years, and then if they've broken the laws for selling or storing alcohol, we have issued permits in the past to those who've had a DUI, an open container, or public intoxication, which the one you're looking at all has. Most of these, 2 of these at least, are almost beyond the 10 years. To my knowledge, unless that comes under moral turpitude, that would not be something that would normally hold up an application.
Okay, because it was alcohol related, I thought it might be pertinent. All right.
If it relates to sale as opposed to personal consumption, then it would become an issue to consider. In other words, if somebody violated the state law about selling as opposed to their personal use and having an open container in a vehicle.
Right.
Okay.
Like, such as selling to underage, or selling without a permit, or transporting without a permit, those type things.
Okay. And so all of these have been recommended to be passed, is that right?
Yes, sir.
What's the will of the council?
Move we approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Ms. Wright, will call the roll?
Mr. Gilly?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Mr. Washington?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. You have a list of bills that are ready to be paid before you. I think Mr. Gilly wanted to make the motion to pay the statements for the last time.
Thank you, Mayor. Move that we pay the bills.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
Mr. Gilly?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Mr. Washington?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. I don't have any board and commission appointments. Okay. I think Mr. Crumley has some other business.
Mayor and council, at your desk is a proposed lease between the city and United Parcel Service. Directly across the street from United Parcel Service's Industrial Boulevard plant today is a city police department activity. There's about a half an acre of land that is entirely compromised by overhead power lines. In fact, there's a TVA transmission tower that sits in the property. Property can never be built upon. However, the business at UPS has improved. They need to put employee parking on that half acre to allow more space for trucks at their facility on Industrial Drive. Kudos to the planning staff and to the legal department. We've been working on this with UPS now 2 to 3 months. $1,000 a month for just over a half an acre of real estate that is very, very compromised. The parking lot is well designed, meets all of the codes for landscaping, lighting, trees, etc., although they are short trees and short lamps because of the TVA power lines.
Ms. McGann?
Mayor, I would ask any motion to approve be subject to final approval of the city attorney, because I see some things that need tweaking.
Okay.
How long is the lease for?
5 years with an option for an additional 5 years.
I would move for passage with any adjustments that need to be made by city staff.
Second.
Mr. Smotherman, Mr. Washington? Ms. Wright, you'll call the roll?
Mr. Gilly?
Aye.
Ms. Gels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. LaLance?
Aye.
Mr. Smotherman?
Aye.
Mr. Washington?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Young?
Aye.
Mayor McFarland?
Aye. Do we have any other business from the staff or council?
We're going to miss you, Toby.
Miss you guys, but be across the street.
But with the permission of the council, I think it would be appropriate to let Mr. Gilly have the gavel and call the meeting as adjourned.
I'm going to miss those suits. Them suits you wear, I'm going to miss those.
I hope I never have to come before you. And so please remember me,
The last
Toby.
time you want to see him with the
Yeah.
gavel.
With that, Mayor, We're adjourned.